Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of FTBL Final Whistle. It's myself, Lies, of course. And yesterday, you guys saw me doing the show all by myself. Cam, of course, had to pull out late, whether it was an injury problem, whether it was he was trying to avoid smoke from all of his crap predictions that he's had this time. Don't let him get away with that. Regardless, today I do have a guest. It isn't Cam. It isn't Haj, who's been on the channel a few times now. Some of you guys might recognize him from Sky Sports if you guys tune in every once in a while. ESPN FC's finest, the host of No Ratings podcast. But of course, I'll let him introduce himself.
Hey, I didn't see the introduce yourself part coming in. Thank you for having me, bro. Yeah, I'm the host of the No Ratings pod. You might see me in fact, a little exclusive for you. I'm doing the January transfer show for Sky Sports, so you will see me on that. So yeah, that'll be absolutely lovely. I did watch a little bit of the show yesterday. Liaz, you might be coming for my job soon, man. Just slow down with the hosting.
Hey, man, thank you for coming on the show, though, bro. Of course. Today was the final day of group stage action. It's been an absolutely insane one. Obviously, you're a few years older than me. Not too much older, but you've seen a few more tournaments than I have. But I have to say, I think this is probably the craziest group stage I can remember from an international tournament. The drama, every single game, bar two teams going into that final day with something to play for. Upsets all over the gaff. Today, of course, it looked like at one point Brazil could be heading into the other side of the bracket to play Portugal, as Switzerland were one goal away in those final minutes from setting Brazil second in their group. You, of course, had South Korea scoring in the 91st minute to basically send Uruguay and Luis Suarez home in tears. Always love to see that, of course. But I think the only place to start is Switzerland-Serbia, which I think we all looked at this game just like licking our lips, right? Xhaka and Shaqiri versus Serbia, the rematch. In Serbia, I mean, Nubaid, you know this. I was on your podcast talking about Serbia, my dark horse. I predicted them going all the way to the quarterfinals. Crashing out of this group with 0 wins. I think 9 goals conceded in 3 games. And if Turkey were the ultimate blunder of last tournament, Serbia are this year's Turkey. So coming out of this game, I know you're a big Granit Xhaka fan. I thought he absolutely dominated the game. He's had a great tournament. What are your main takeaways from today?
I mean, let's talk about Granit Xhaka first. You took it there. My boy GX shining again, man. I just actually saw the video of him doing a little signal to the bench, and I realized why people were fuming. I love this guy, man. I feel like we haven't seen the dog in him for a while, and tonight Serbia unleashed it, and I've missed that. Someone just said there, Ash just said, Xhaka dropped a real men classic Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer, bro. But no, this was one of those games where, obviously, before the tournament, we all backed Serbia big time. But I think we actually backed them on the basis of what they can do going forward. Whereas defensively, actually, they are a sham. Apart from Pavlovic, who I think someone will sign. But, I mean, in this first game, I think the comparison was made that he's a young Vidic. I think that's what I heard. And I see some similarities with the rash tackles here, there, and everywhere. But nah, it was one of those games where, like, I think you sat in, strapped in, full well knowing it was going to be a roller coaster ride, and then it delivered. And that doesn't happen that often in tournament football. A lot of the times you sit down and you go, "This will be a decent game." But they both went hammer on tongue, and then Switzerland hung on so desperately at the end. I absolutely love the beef in this game. Now, obviously, politically speaking, take the politics out of it before I get cancelled. I love the beef between the 22 players. Nothing to do with the actual politics. Xherdan Shaqiri.
We'll take away that transfer show of yours in January.
It'll be gone. Xherdan Shaqiri, man, like classic tournament player. He just comes up with moments left, right, and centre. And Switzerland just have I think I saw your tweet, actually. They've just got this thing about them in tournament football. They're indestructible. They've been playing with this 11 since 1784, and they're still doing it now.
Nah, facts, man. Shaqiri and Xhaka, I think, bro, they made their debuts for the national team like 2009. They've been together, those two in particular, with this group since then. And obviously, this group has gone from strength to strength in recent tournaments. The statistic, Nubaid, was that they were actually the team that conceded the least amount of goals in qualifying in all of World Cup qualifying, not just the European ones. They're a team that no one wants to come up against. We saw it last year at the Euros against France. They shocked them. We're so close to beating Spain and even going to the semifinals. You might be seeing, though, a lot of real men in the comment section.
I was going to say, what's going on there?
I'll clue you into that. So that's Cam's moniker. Cam is all about the real men teams, like the teams of like dogs and the teams of like those old, like Serbia are the real men in his eye.
I see where this is going.
Cam took the Serbia moniker to the moon, bro. This was his team that he was riding with to the death. and they've absolutely disgraced him. And a lot of people are saying that he ain't showing face today because of how bad a pick that was. But Serbia, man, let's talk about them, because I remember 2010, right? They had a similar golden generation, if you will, of Stankovic, Nemanja Vidic, Ivanovic. They just had European top-level pedigree players all over the pitch. And that was a group, again, that they finished last in their group, I think, with Germany, Ghana, and Australia. You look now, obviously, 12 years later, none of those players are still there. But look, everyone kind of focused on those two strikers. Very few teams still play two number 9s together in a 4-4-2 or a 3-5-2, let alone two very similar profiles in these big, strong men in Vlahovic and Mitrovic. And going forward,
real men.
Yeah, real men. With Dusan Tadic, who I thought actually played an exceptional first half. The second half, he started to fizzle out a bit. But defensively, like you said, bro, these guys were shambles. Milinkovic from Fiorentina, absolutely awful, I thought, throughout this tournament. Speaking of the other one, Milinkovic-Savic, for a guy that Lazio's president claims to be worth 100 million pounds, I don't think he really showed anywhere near that value throughout this tournament. And look, Uruguay were horrible this tournament. Denmark were absolutely disappointing. But I think Serbia, for me, are the biggest disappointments, because for how good they were in qualifying, not even losing to Portugal once, to have so much hype going to this tournament, I think they're the biggest loser of this tournament, in my opinion.
The thing is, though, when teams like Serbia come into these tournaments, they always come in with the idea that just getting through the group is the first part of the achievement. And then everything else after that is like a bonus. That's why over the years, this Serbia team are so like, tears, 4-4-2 is such a real men formation. I mean, to be fair, Dusan Vlahovic, I think this was the first game he started. Oh, I think he started the first, got subbed, and started this one. Missed.
I think no, he came on for the first one. This is the first game he started. You're correct.
Yeah, and I did look at that, and I thought, you've waited too long to play him with Mitrovic. They forced Mitrovic to start every game. I mean, you saw towards the end of the Premier League season, in the end before the World Cup, he was on his last legs. So I think then you look at like Kostic, who we all were like, he's the guy. I put him straight in my FIFA fantasy team. I was like, that's the guy. He's getting.
I told you, actually. I think I was the one who told you he's a dark horse for most assists in the tournament.
Yeah, and that did not happen. But then just across the board, I mean, like when you look at that midfield, Milinkovic, Savic, Sasa Lukic, and Zivkovic, if I'm completely honest, that comment there from the not real Van Persie, and if it is Van Persie, shout out you, boss. We think Serbia are good because they all play in Europe. That is a really interesting way to look at it. I think we forget that this tournament was played in a continent where it's, well, we're not a continent, but in a place where it's warmer, much warmer. The climate is difficult to play in. And we backed our stocks on the basis of European players. Denmark have European players and they haven't done jack. Serbia have got European players. They haven't done jack. And the other teams you mentioned, they've also not done very well. I think climate's something that plays a part into that. But then also, you go into this tournament with this feeling of like, oh, this team's going to be so great. This team's going to be so good. But then we also like completely forgot that Cameroon are actually not a terrible side. I don't think they're a great side, but they were great. Like, you got to like take everything into consideration. If you put Serbia in a tournament in Canada, which there will be, they will deal much better with those climates than they will with 30 degrees heat in Qatar.
Yeah, of course.
So, and the flip side, that's why it's worked for Cameroon, it's worked for Morocco, even Tunisia, who me and you both said would be the worst team in this tournament, or one of the worst. Qatar are the worst. Tunisia actually were brilliant in every game they played. They were just relying on big man Wabi up front. So I sort of leave this group going, it's probably ended up how it's meant to be. I'm quite okay with Switzerland finishing second.
Defo.
So
no, 100%. I think you look too, just to kind of follow up on your point, like the teams that didn't do as well, maybe due to climate. But I even went into this tournament talking about Australia, for example, and the one real advantage, in my opinion, that they had was they've been playing in Qatar, exclusively in Qatar, so many times in the last decade. Like that's basically been their second home in qualifying. There's been games where they can't obviously travel all the way back to Australia and have Asian Cup games there. They've played them in Qatar, and you could tell they had a lot of experience with the climate, with the stadium, whatever. You look at the amount of Asian teams and North African teams that have done so well in this tournament. I think that's an interesting theory for sure. So yeah, Switzerland go into the next round. I think, as much as I would have liked to see Serbia, just to see Mitrovic and Vlahovic continue dunking on guys, Serbia are not Serbia.
They didn't actually dunk on anyone in this one. They had no service.
Look, the first half they were doing their thing. I can't lie, bro. That Mitrovic header got me gassed, bro. But Switzerland going to the next round. They're going to play Portugal. We'll kind of preview the round of 16 games towards the second half of the show. But the other game that happened in this group, of course, was Brazil versus Cameroon. And for Brazil, I think this was in their heads at least, a dead rubber game. They were qualified, basically had first place wrapped up due to their goal difference. They played an entirely weaker team. And Cameroon, who realistically, I think most people had them dead and gone before a ball was kicked, not just in this game, but in the group, managed to shock them. The first African team ever to beat Brazil at a World Cup. Vincent Abubakar, who, if we're talking about real men, I'm going to put it on the record right now. I think he's the CEO. I think he's the CEO of real men. After what he said about Salah, backing it up to an extent at international level, and then taking off his shirt and celebrating when he knew he had a yellow card, brother, I have to give you a round of applause, man. You are a boss, bro.
That's probably one of the most iconic pictures in World Cup history. The man, if people haven't seen it yet, he's got his hand in the air. He's fully aware he's getting sent off, but he was like, I'm leaving like a boss. And I don't care what happens after. I rate him so much for that. It's funny, he came on, as he picked the ball up and popped it out wide, I said to I'm with my brother-in-law at the moment, I was like, watch this guy bang a header, man. He hates Salah. Literally a second later, because my brother-in-law hates Salah. A second later, he bags, and I was like, didn't want to see that. But the thing is about that Brazil side, we looked at that front four before the game. Gabriel Jesus, Martinelli, Rodrigo, and Anthony. Most countries take that as a front four in their teams. That's a crazy backup front four. It's not bad.
No, 100%. And I mean, I see some people commenting about the front four in particular. Ash here thinks that Martinelli actually elevated himself today above the likes of Anthony and Jesus. And I think that's a decent show. I didn't catch obviously much of that game. Most of my attention was focused to Serbia, Switzerland. But I kind of looked at the Martinelli inclusion this year a bit like Bukayo Saka at last Euros, where most people didn't expect Saka to have much of an impact or get much playing time whatsoever. But when he got that limited game time in the beginning, at least, he really took it on full force. And he became the first man off the bench. And then he was even starting games later into the tournament. I'm not saying Martinelli is going to displace Vinicius, because I think Vinicius is a much more established player than who Saka had in front of him at England level. But Martinelli could definitely establish himself as one of the first names off the Brazil bench. I know this guy was probably a shock to most people coming into the World Cup. Neymar, I'm sure, he looked completely shocked when Martinelli's name was announced. But I think with his directness, his energy, his hunger, everything that he kind of brings outside of a technical point of view, like the tenacity, the intangibles that he provides, I could definitely see him being someone that comes off the bench for Brazil, perhaps when Richarlison isn't having his best moment, perhaps when Rafinha isn't balling out of his mind, and kind of being that direct force up front that Neymar is feeding through, that Vinicius is feeding through. I could definitely see that.
Also, I think he's just a brilliant trump card. He's one of these players that you can throw on with 10 minutes to go. Something that doesn't get talked about enough about him. Aerially, he's actually superb. If you watch Arsenal closely, Ramsdale does target that left side for Martinelli to flick it on. I know that's a very niche point, but what I mean by that is in these tournaments, so many games get settled by set pieces. So many games get settled by a back post header or a back post chance. One thing he probably misses from his game a little bit is the killer instinct in front of goal. But if you throw him on, I haven't seen a right back who wants to tackle him. Every right back backs off because he's quick, he's direct, he's two-footed. He loves bringing it inside on his right foot. He's a really, really difficult player to come up against. I think Brazil are very fortunate that they have, I would say, two very different wingers that possess two very different things. On one side, you've got Anthony, who I think, as much as he may frustrate you on a bad day, on a good day, he's irresistible to watch. Like today, there's moments against Cameroon, I was just thinking, you can't get the ball off him. But then there's moments where I go, just let the ball go. Like, you don't need to keep holding on to it over and over again. On the flip side, you've got Martinelli, who's direct and just he's a bit of a powerhouse from out wide. Gabriel Jesus, I just missed the comment there, but I'm sure, Leas, you can read it out. He stole the place out today.
Cooked by Brazil Twitter, bro.
Yeah.
So Jesus, I don't know if you know, Nubaid, he's the only player to wear number 9 for Brazil at a tournament and never score a goal for them in the 2018 World Cup. When you look at the likes of Fred, Luis Fabiano, like, not that this Fabiano was a gunman in his day, but Fred, for example, like, that's a horrible stat to kind of carry around with you. And 4 years later, Brazil fans have not lost any love for him whatsoever. This guy can't catch a break, man. But we have a super chat here from Tommy, Nigerian Inter fan. European teams perform in Russia, silence. A+A teams. Oh, yeah. Teams perform in Qatar. They're used to the heat. Dead that talking point, please. Give us out credit. No, 100%. I don't think Nubaid was making that point to take away from you guys. But I don't think that's the worst shout, to be honest with you. But at the same time, we have to give credit to the African teams, to the Asian teams. I think the Asian teams in particular, right? I look at Japan and South Korea. those are two countries that I feel are consistently downplayed every single tournament. But for the longest time now, I can remember them getting out of their groups. I can remember them making good tournaments, 100%. Japan, last tournament, bro, we're within 2 minutes away from beating Belgium, Belgium's golden generation. 2-0 up. Obviously, they choked that away. South Korea have gone on deep runs in the past. We know that. So, yeah, look, I definitely think the climate has to do with it, but 100% at the same time, African teams and Asian teams have really shown out this tournament. And you look at the fact that you have as many Asian teams in the next round as South American teams, as many Asian teams or more Asian teams than CONCACAF teams. That's a damning statistic. They've turned up this tournament 100%.
I think also on the point of like the climate, I would say that's an added advantage. It's not the advantage. I think like what we've seen also is like the African game and African players have naturally developed a lot over the last 15 or 20 years, which is why when you refer to like, say, when people are talking about Cameroon, there's a lot of talk about, oh, they've got this player who plays in this division and this player who plays in this division. Same for Senegal. And that, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which way you look at it, all the best players tend to play in Europe. And so therefore, if you have a player who plays in Europe, that naturally makes people go, he's probably a better player. So I think the heat and the climate, I can say this from speaking to a few of the Moroccan players that I know via my agent. We had a little conversation and a few of them were saying it feels like home to them, which I think people forget is such a big detail. When you go to like places like Russia, I went to the Ukraine Liverpool Real Madrid final, and it is the most uncomfortable, scary place to be as a brown man. If I was in Qatar and I was playing football there, I've got halal food, I've got temperatures I love. It's like a holiday for me. So like that's what sort of a few of the Moroccan players were saying, that for them it feels like a holiday. So they're playing at like peak performance because they feel great. Mentality is like such a big part of the game. I'm not for 1 second saying that because of the heat. African and Asian teams are doing really well. Shout out Japan and South Korea.
It's like an XP card for them, bro. They just automatically go. Nah, they balled out, bro. And for Van Persie, again, real or fake, whoever you are, can you give some love to Australia balling out? Australia, bro, that's one of the shocks of the tournament, bro, because the way they qualified already, I wouldn't want to call it a miracle, but like, wow, who saw it coming, beating Peru in the dramatic sense that they did? And they have had an absolutely brilliant tournament. Of course, Denmark didn't cover themselves in glory either, but yeah.
Bro, Harry Souter at centre-back. He came back from an injury. He was out for a year, came back, played 2 games before the World Cup, and then he gets thrown into playing World Cup. 6'7". This guy's Harry Maguire, but actually the Harry Maguire we think Harry Maguire is. He's absolutely balling out, man. Someone signing him ASAP.
Defo. So that's basically group, what is it? Group H or group G? No, group G. Basically, I think like Switzerland and Serbia for me was always close, but Brazil topping the group was expected. And then, of course, Switzerland followed them on to the next round. It was close near the end, but I think Brazil are the deserved winners. And we'll see also with the return of Neymar, because Martin Keown was suggesting first game that Brazil might actually be playing better without the second all-time top scorer in Brazilian history, the guy who's driven this Brazil team to such highs in the last few years. You're a fool and a schmuck, but enough of that. Let me move on to the next point. Group H. Portugal had already basically won this group for the most part. Obviously, they needed like a massive miracle in both games to drop down to second. It was really down, in my opinion, before the game to Ghana versus Uruguay. I think everyone had kind of downplayed South Korea because after 2 games, they had 1 point. They had lost to Ghana and now playing Portugal. And all the focus was on Uruguay and Ghana, of course, because of the main narrative. Suarez, the revenge, it had to happen. And Nubaid, after 15, 20 minutes, it looked like it was on. Ghana were peppering them. They get the penalty. The one surviving member of that 2010 team, Andre Ayew, steps up. Asamoah Gyan looking from the rafters, staring down. And, bro, Ghana, man, we were all rooting for you, bro. We were all rooting for you. But you deserve it this time. You deserve it. You deserve to get cooked this time, man. Hold that.
That pen was awful, man. Like, I used to be a penalty taker for my team, and I used to always say, if it's a high-pressure situation, just hit it as hard as you can in the middle. No keeper stands in the middle. It was such a bad penalty. And then Uruguay just found, like, energy from that. Luis Suarez, brother, you have been awful for the longest period. And for this game, he snapped his fingers, and he was everywhere. I was like, what is happening, man? You pair him with someone like Darwin Nunez, who's just a pest. Like, he's horrible to play against. It was one of the strangest games to watch, because I was like, the narrative this entire World Cup has gone with the underdogs, but then Ghana are folding to Uruguay because they couldn't keep their heads. Uruguay have been awful this tournament. And even in this game, I don't think they were particularly good. They could have had 2 penalties. I'm sure we're going to talk about that. And then in the end, Luis Suarez ends up in tears. Ghanaian fans end up in tears, but it's the weirdest thing. And they're like low-key
I
happy.
saw videos, Nubate, of Ghanaian fans chanting, Korea, Korea, happy. They knew they were going out, but they said, hey, I'm leaving here with something. I'm from around the way. I'm leaving here with something. Bro, they were just happy that their ops went home. Honestly, that's just football for you. Look, I got this one comment saying, Lias, please. So what are you saying? Is it Uruguay or Uruguay? I thought it was Uruguay.
I say Uruguay, but some people do say Uruguay, but I'm assuming it's Uruguay.
I don't know. Tom Dexter, are you from Montevideo?
Tom Dexter does not sound like he's from Uruguay.
Doesn't sound like you're from Montevideo. I thought it was Uruguay. If it's Uruguay, I apologize. I'll go from that. If anyone can confirm in the comment section below. Just so I don't miss these super chats, we will get back to the topic of that game. Ash wants to ask you, Nubate, as a Liverpool fan, is Fabinho done at the top level? He stunk today. I think he's been good for a while, to be honest. What do you think?
Brother, I've been watching this guy at Liverpool, and his legs don't work like they used to. It's not good, man. Like, I was about to break into Ed Sheeran, but the vocals weren't having it. I don't know, man. I thought that he was almost like protecting himself for the World Cup. But then I realized, and I'm sure he realized, he wasn't going to play. And then this game, I just felt as though like he's going through the motions a little bit. It feels like he's got a tractor on his back and he can't move. And that's a really worrying sign for a player who plays holding midfield, and also for a player who's not really that old. He's actually only played, like, Klopp used him like a bar of soap.
Yeah, bro. His minutes played is crazy.
Yeah, my thing is, though, he had that period where he played a lot of minutes. Then Klopp has dipped him in and out and tried to figure out how to get him back into peak condition. I just think if you're not in peak condition by November, December time, I don't know if you're ever going to get in peak condition, because peak condition should be quite close now. Maybe he has this rest at the World Cup where he doesn't play that often and comes back, and maybe he's fresh. But on the evidence of this game against Cameroon, I mean, you'd think against Cameroon he'd run things. He was getting run all over.
I put them on to Casemiro. Miro, man, the stocks are going up. Scoring World Cup winners. Hey, man. Other super chat, again, nothing to really do with this group debate, but just so I don't miss it. Risk of underexposure asks, which team will improve their finishing the most in the knockout rounds, do you reckon? So many teams are not playing to their standard in the final third. Who's really underachieving their XG? Like, who really has the most room to grow from a finishing point of view, do you reckon?
That's a great question, you know.
We got some tacticals over here at FTBL.
Yeah, I'll rate it, you know. Risk of underexposure. Who do I think has been really underperforming in front of goal?
It was Germany before they got eliminated.
Yeah, that's exactly who I was thinking of. I think Spain have overdone their finishing, overperformed their XG, should I say, in a more technical way. I think
I have someone in mind, but I'll hear what you say first.
Maybe Argentina.
That's
I think I think they get into great situations repeatedly, and the final ball's not quite been there. We've seen Di Maria have a sloppy final ball. Messi even has had a sloppy ball. Valence has read my mind with Argentina. I think out of all the teams that I expect to start getting a bit of a flurry of goals, and not that I think there's going to be lots of goals, but I think they'll start creating more clear-cut chances, because in these games, there's a lot of cutbacks that's getting missed by the first man, drops to the edge, scrappy, nothing happens. I think they'll start to convert those moments a little bit more. I'm guessing your feeling is something similar.
No, 100%. And I think, look, everyone asked me, what's your major concern of Argentina going to this tournament? And obviously, Argentina aren't a perfect team, so there's just not one player that's potentially holding them back from winning the whole thing. But I looked at Lautaro Martinez, and although he's had a decent record for Argentina in the past few years, I just have never bought the hype with this guy playing as a lone striker. I think in a 2 next to a Lukaku or a Dzeko, where they can kind of play off each other, he can be a force for you. But leading the line, especially at a major tournament, A, he's not a killer in front of goal. B, for me, he's not exceptionally powerful or aggressive. Like, he can score you goals, but I don't think you can win a World Cup with Lautaro playing up front. That's not to say that I think his replacement Alvarez can win you a World Cup, but I feel a hell of a lot more confident with Julian Alvarez playing up front. I think his impact since kind of forcing him, because that's what he's done, right? He's forced himself into this Argentina team. He's taken his opportunity with both hands. I think that finish that you saw against Poland, mixed with how many great positions he got himself into, again, because of that power that he has in running behind. I think that will elevate Argentina another level, and I think they will become a lot more clinical with him up front than Lautaro.
I think also with Julian Alvarez, in my opinion, he's a genuine goal scorer. A lot
Yeah.
of the moments and the chances he gets, he hits things so early. He reminds me of Aguero in the sense of Lears has left us, so it's just me. It reminds me of Aguero in the way he takes his chances, in the way he. Thank you, bro. Just left me to run the show.
It's your show now. FTBL Nubin.
Look at me. I am the captain now. I think he reminds me of Aguero in those sort of like central areas where he just shoots before anything gets set, even the goal he scored. But I think there's a chance later in the second half, where he hit it really hard into the side netting. A lot of strikers look to pull shots across the box. I think
Yeah.
he's from a bit of an older class of finishing that shooting areas where keepers don't actually look in. So I think Argentina need their XG to match their goals scored. I was going to say, I'll just on that point, I would do worry a little bit for Spain. I know the World Cup isn't played this way, but in my opinion, I feel like they cashed in all their goals in one game. It's one of those things like Danny Olmo is not going to finish this tournament with 4 goals. He's going to finish with 1 or 2, and he's already got his 1.
Torres is not going to get more than 2. I can guarantee you that right now, bro.
So,
100%. Like everyone was laughing at Gary Neville, right, for saying there's not enough goals in the Spain team, and then they ended up scoring 7. But I think when you look at it, right, my main concern for Spain was I looked at their front line, and none of these players are major contributors at club level. Ferran Torres is a laughingstock at Barcelona. Dani Olmo is not some guy who's ever been a prolific goal scorer for Leipzig. Marco Asensio is playing false 9 for Spain when he can't break into the Real Madrid team. I just don't really trust that attack. And I agree with you. I think that game against Costa Rica, you could have put a lot of teams against Costa Rica that day, and they would have smashed 4 or 5 or 6 past them. They were exceptionally poor that game. So I worry a bit for Spain, but when you have Enrique as well, I think they'll be that team that wins a lot of games 1-0. It's going to be boring. Yeah. They're going to complete. Rodri's going to have 250 passes a game, but they'll get it done eventually. Back to now the Ghana versus Uruguay game. We'll stick with Tom Dexter's pronunciation of that. Again, Uruguay kind of scored that goal. Suarez, like you were saying, bro, has been absolutely cooked for the last 3-4 years now, bro. But he ran it back today. In the name of hate, in the name of hatred, he ran it back today, bro. Everyone was talking about Ghana getting revenge. They forgot that they're playing against the biggest supervillain this sport, in my opinion, that's probably ever seen in Luis Suarez. And they went up, 2-0 pretty early on. It looked like Uruguay were going to cruise to the win, cruise to the round of 16. And then in the other game, which I didn't really watch, I was getting a lot of updates from my friends. No one shouting Sue in my mentions today, though, oddly enough. I didn't get any of that today, but
he had a stinker.
Regardless, South Korea out of nowhere, man, equalized against a weaker Portugal team. And in fact, I'm very interested in asking you a question about the concept of teams resting their best players at the last group stage. Is it a bit unfair for other teams? Because now you've seen with France, with Brazil, and with Portugal now, they've dropped points because they basically rested their whole 11. But regardless, South Korea shocked the world, beat Portugal, and send Uruguay crying. And the scenes of Luis Suarez in tears, of the Uruguay fans basically looking like they were at a funeral. Hook that shit directly in my veins, bro. Hook it directly in my veins, man. Anti-football is dead today, bro. What were your main takeaways from that?
The Uruguay situation, I'll pronounce it in every way possible so no one can get upset. Firstly, the gaffer had a stinker, full well knowing that the situation could go wrong in the Portugal game and therefore requiring another goal. You take off both your strikers that can score goals. Throw on Edison Cavani, who doesn't even want to shoot in good situations. He shot himself in the foot. I was watching that, and you know me, I'm a bit of a supervillain myself, and I was like, I would love a late penalty for Uruguay. And they could have had 2. They could have had, I think the second one, Cavani leans in a little bit, and you see them giving sometimes don't. The first one, they didn't say whether it was handball. A lot of people said it was a good tackle. I thought it was a bad tackle. Also, Faisal doesn't watch this, but if he does, and if you know who Faisal is, Fede Valverde had a shocking tournament. But there you go. They're literally right on cue. I said Faisal said Fede player of the World Cup. No, he wasn't. I expected him to show up more, mainly because Faisal's been telling me this whole tournament that he's
the main takeaway from this tournament is don't listen to Faisal. Brother, yeah. his bracket stinks, man. Qatar, Fede Valverde, Uruguay and Belgium. Oh my God.
He said, I'm not going to lie, I put my hands up here. I backed Uruguay to go to the final. So I put my hands
You had them in the final?
Yeah, but the reason was because I couldn't figure out the bracket. So I was like, it was either Uruguay or I can't remember the other team, but I had Uruguay or someone else. So
I've been fucking Faisal all day when I should have been coming for you.
Yeah, but the clips
Ay,
don't
ay,
exist
ay,
on
ay,
the
ay.
internet.
Ay, ay, ay.
Yeah, but it was off the basis of that. I thought they'd score a lot of goals in these open games, and actually they've not done that. They've not even had any ambition to score goals. So yeah, I kind of leave that. It's Uruguay. Ooh,
Uruguay. I thought that's what it was, bro.
yeah,
These
I
guys
think
are
you're
talking about
saying it right.
you're a gay. I thought that was like what we made, how we said it when we were kids or some shit like that. Oh, you're from Uruguay. Tom Dexter.
Uruguay. There you
Aight,
go.
bro. Hey, I
Happy
heard
days.
Nubaid say Nunez golden boot. Did you put
Listen,
that?
listen. Ash is definitely a follower of the No Ratings Pod.
I was gonna say you're losing that sweepstake that we had, bro.
Yeah. Oh no, I've seen the results and they don't look good for anyone.
Oh, someone has to
Yeah,
win.
I did back him for the Golden Boot, but I honestly, if you watch every single one of his games, they have so much potential to play him in. They just don't have the capacity in midfield to play him in. That's why I point my finger at Fede Valverde and say, "You did nothing for Uruguay." Uruguay.
All he had, bro, was the odd long shot every single game, bro. He had one every game. He had one basically screamer that was like inches away from being a goal of the tournament contender. But outside of that, Faisal, you got to answer for your war crimes. I will say this about Darwin Nunez, though. For me, this tournament exposed him a little bit, in my opinion, because we all know what Nunez is exceptional at. He is chaos epitomized. He is always a nuisance. He's like, for me, a flea. He's always in your ear. He's always bothering you. He's always on the last line. You cannot rest as a defender with him. But not today, the whole tournament has shown and proved to me that Nunez has a lot of work to do in terms of his overall game as a center forward, his hold up play, able to bring other players into play. When the game is not going at 100 miles an hour, how are you affecting games? I look at the Portugal game, for example, which is a slugfest. It's a game where two teams that don't play the most attractive style of football are basically slugging it out for a result. And Pepe, for me, at 39 years old, played him like a string, bro. Like the guy, for me, schooled him. And Darwin Nunez is young. He will absolutely improve. And especially under Jurgen Klopp, that's the kind of manager that you have to expect will improve him. But I think this tournament showed that Nunez, while he is very, very good, he's also very, very raw. And I think he has a ways to go. And I think he'll get there eventually, but he's not the finished article. Not that anyone is really saying he is, but yeah, that's my main takeaway from Nunez for this tournament.
Yeah, I think I watched this tournament and thought his overall play at times is brilliant and at times is woeful. And that just tells me his age more than anything else. I think
Yeah.
the real concern for me as a Liverpool fan, or just as a fan who likes forwards, mentally, there's a screw loose in there. Some of the stuff he does is a bit ridiculous. The situation with the penalty, what is he doing? Like, why
You know,
are you even?
Mayowa, right?
Yeah, yeah,
His whole thing is like Darwin Nunez has voices in his head, bro. You know, like the Kermit meme with like the devil and the angel on your shoulder.
yeah,
He's
yeah,
got a
yeah.
devil on his shoulder, basically saying like, "Do this, do that. You can dribble this player. You can make it your show." He's got like voices in his head, man. That's my theory with him, bro.
I think that the thing is, there's moments, like especially in wide areas in this game, where he is absolutely rapid and he can cause havoc for anyone. The problem
Mm.
with Darwin Nunez at times is he loves to wrestle too much. There was times in this game where he took on his defender, then turned back just to put his arm out and feel his face and his chest. And I was like, "You've done the hard part. Like you've got. Why are you so desperate to scrap? Like,
Bro.
yeah, it's a very. I think Klopp will coach it out of him. That rawness will go, and I think we will see a very good player. Because I mean, even with the dink that got cleared off the line, that was such a saucy finish. But yeah, he literally. I mean, he plays like someone swore at his mum. And
Bro, I mean, I'll tell you, right? Like Tom Dexter, we're having question marks about his nationality. There is no question whatsoever that Darwin Nunez is from Uruguay, man. He is
yeah,
the most typical Uruguayan footballer I've ever seen in my life. Just 100% shithousery all the time, bro. Him, Godin, Suarez, these guys are born with chaos in their blood, bro. That's the reality of the situation.
it's needless though. Like sometimes I just look
They
at him and I just
overdo it,
think,
of course. Of course.
yeah,
Even
just
Suarez,
avoid
bro.
it.
Suarez, for me, I think my dad texted me today, like, he should basically patent his style of diving, bro. The way he gets on the ground and
Yeah,
starts, like, holding his face when he gets hit on his ankle. He's
yeah.
a genius at it, but you got to have a screw loose to play that kind of
Hey,
style.
your dad's a goat if he's sending the word pattern in a text
My
message.
dad is taking over football Twitter, bro. I can't lie. I post his messages. They get more likes than my tweets, bro. They're saying they
Hey,
want to see him at SDS. But look, that's the group stage basically wrapped up. Like I said, it's been absolutely insane. I'm not gonna basically go through every single group and talk about what's happened. If you've been following the channel for long enough, you'll see we've been doing that every single day. What I will do with Nubaid, though, is kind of briefly take a brief look at what the round of 16 promises. And I think we're gonna do that on no ratings later. I believe
yeah,
so. If not, maybe not, but we'll give you a sneak peek of that today. The first tie in Ubaid, the first round of 16 game, is the Netherlands, who obviously finished top of Group A, versus the United States, who managed to edge out Iran basically on the last day of the group. They'll be playing in the first game. I think Netherlands have to be the favorite. Cody Gakpo has emerged as probably the breakout star of this tournament. I think it's almost certain that he'll end up playing for Man United in the very near future. But do you give any hope to the United States going into this game?
I do, because I'm not overly convinced by Netherlands this tournament. If you think about the goals Cody Gakpo is scoring, they're from very low XG situations. So they're not really, sometimes you watch a team and you go, this is how they score goals. Like if you look at England, you go, they score goals from set pieces. Whereas with Netherlands, I look at them and I go, the goals they score are not repeatable. They keep scoring different goals in every game. And I don't particularly like Daley Blind as a left wing back or whatever this like hybrid role he plays on that side. I think if you get a pacey player on that side up against him, and I'd be tempted to switch Pulisic to the right hand side and say, just stand behind him. Don't track him this way because he's not going to be that harmful. Stand behind him and get ready to go, because when the ball comes, you'll get Aki in 1v1 wide areas and then anything can happen. I think USA have the capacity to compete. My thing is, we were talking about XG earlier. USA cannot score goals.
Bro, it's crazy. It's crazy. I said they basically, they're very good in every single phase of the game, but they can't put the ball in the back of the net. And
bro, they remind me of Graham Potter's Brighton. Remember, a couple of years ago, like they play sexy football at times. They're really aggressive, hard to play against, and get into really nice positions and coordinate it perfectly. It lands to the person, you go, that's the guy, and he'll put it into Rosette, and you go, we just spent 10 minutes building that moment and now it's gone.
No, absolutely. I mean, the one that basically summed it up for me is Tim Weah, the header that he had against Iran. And you think, why couldn't you be your dad in that moment? George Weah, it's 1-0. But no, the U.S., I think, can definitely be proud of the way they've played this tournament. They didn't have a great qualifying campaign. A lot of questions were asked about Greg Berhalter, but I think he's coached a pretty good tournament. Now, the question mark is going to be the Netherlands. And the Netherlands, I keep saying this, right? I've never seen a Dutch team where the defenders are really good, the midfield is solid, and it's the attack that's lacking. I remember teams of Van der Vaart, Schneider, Robin, Van Persie, and then in the back they get let down by like Oyer or Matthijssen or what's his name, the Heitinga. Like they don't have great defenders, but they always produce brilliant attackers. This Dutch team, it's almost the opposite. You're seeing guys like Bergwijn and Klaassen, Premier League rejects, starting for one of the biggest footballing nations on the planet, and you just kind of ask yourself, where did all the Dutch superstars go? They're playing center back nowadays, and they're playing holding midfield nowadays. It's a very bizarre Dutch team, but I do think they'll have enough to beat the U.S. just because based on what we just talked about with the U.S., man, they can't score goals. And against Van Dijk, I'll be very surprised if they're able to sniff out even one of them. So I would say the Netherlands go through, and they will end up playing the winner of Argentina versus Australia. And Argentina, they must be thinking every single higher being that they believe in, bro, because it looked at one point like they were out of this group for sure. Losing against Saudi Arabia, people were saying, could they get out of it? They started the tournament horribly. I'm of the belief that Argentina are slowly but surely growing every single game. They're finally starting to find the formula right. I'm not saying they're going to win the tournament because I still think they have some flaws to them that no matter how they line up, they're going to have. But they're really starting to look like the team that we believe they were before the tournament. And not to write off Australia, but if you had asked Argentina to pick one team of the ones that qualified for the round of 16 to play, it would have been Australia. This is a dream draw for them, surely, right?
Yeah, I think also, like, on the point of Argentina, I always believe that in tournaments, teams that start slow will gradually find their feet. I think to get beaten in the first game and get away with it for Argentina, it is the perfect way to sort of get going in this tournament and start to move in that direction. The fact that we're talking about them as the team that are underperforming their XG is a danger to everyone else, because at some point they'll start performing rightly along with their XG and they'll start scoring goals. Australia, on the flip side, I think they've well overperformed to get to this point, and they will absolutely know it. And it is like Felipe H said there, it's no surprise that Brazil and Argentina have hit the jackpot with their brackets, because Korea on one end, I'm sure we'll talk about them, and then obviously this Australia game. Australia possess a bit of a threat. We saw that against France, and their bravery is going to be what kills them in this game. Because if I'm the Australia coach, I'm saying let's sit with two really tight banks of four, and have one man up front, and just basically make the ball stick up front, similar to kind of what Mexico tried. But then try and get your wingers like Lecky the boy's got lungs made from some other planet. He'll go up and down all game.
Vibranium lungs.
Yeah, literally vibranium lungs. Get him on that side, get him working his socks off, and squeeze the spaces in the middle. Because when Argentina get the ball wide, they don't know what to do with it. Di Maria actually don't. I was on a show earlier where someone was criticizing Di Maria. I actually don't think he's been awful. The problem has been that, like, I think in wide areas they don't want to be there. That's not how they play football. They don't want the ball stuck in wide areas.
No, 100%. I said, let me make this clear. I want Neymar to win the World Cup, but obviously I love Messi. And every time I watch Argentina, I feel like I'm from Buenos Aires for 90 minutes. Like, I support them so hard. But Di Maria is, for me, they're one. I think we lost Nubaid real quick. We'll see what's up. But basically, yeah, I'm saying Argentina, for me, Di Maria is the one player on Argentina who has PNP it to him if you want. Like, he's able to get the ball and run either on the outside or the inside of his fullback. Not a lot of Argentinian players are able to do so. The problem with Di Maria, bro, this guy crosses to no one so many times. I don't know if you guys noticed this, chat, but Di Maria will pick up the ball, cut inside, and in-swing the ball to like 5'10" McAllister, 5'10" Enzo, or they're crossing the back post to Leo Messi. I think they really need to find new ways of creating chances because they don't have a Gonzalo Higuain in the box anymore. They don't have a Carlos Tevez in the box anymore. Maybe Alvarez can be that aerial threat, but even him, he's not known for being an exceptional header of the ball. At least I haven't seen so. So that's the one concern for me with Di Maria. Let me see if Nubaid is hitting me up real quick. I don't see him. But yeah, we'll continue the show without him. Argentina, they're growing. And I think against Australia, bro, they can cause problems. Let me answer some of these chats while we wait for Nubaid. Philip says, as an Australian and American, I'm just happy to be here so long as Neymar doesn't win. I'm here. Why don't you want Neymar to win, Felipe? Explain that to us, bro. What does PNP mean? So, Mohammed, PNP means pace and power. That's the abbreviation for that. So pace and power, I look at that as a major facet in today's game because you look at all of the best forwards, in my opinion, they are athletes. They are, of course, exceptional technical players, but they are very, very physical players whatsoever. Kay says as well, don't worry, Elias, you ain't got to be shy with us in the chat. Absolutely not, bro. Send in your questions. I'll answer anything you guys want. Kiefer asks, yeah, Nubaid will be back with us. His internet died. For all of you guys who say that my internet is shoddy, there you go. His basically kicked him out of the chat. I mean, Alvarez can go past players too of his pace. Absolutely, Kiefer. But I look at the players out wide. That's where I see an issue with Argentina. Julian Alvarez, of course. I think he's a very powerful striker. I think he can do that as well. This one is 5'10" short. Free mind, do you see 5'10" players in the box as aerial threats? I don't think so. Obviously, 5'10" is not a midget, but as a striker, that's not some aerial threat, in my opinion. Beef Bully. Hi, mate. I've never seen a World Cup like this today. Collected 9 points. Could a new team win it? But yeah, so basically no team in this group stage won every single game at the tournament. I think for the most part, you at least always have one at a tournament to do so. So I agree with you. That's a rarity. Caleb, can we get you and Nubaid to give a prediction in each round of 16 game? Yep, that's absolutely what we're doing, Caleb. We already did the Netherlands versus USA game. We predicted the Netherlands to win. And we'll talk about Argentina when he gets back. Just so people know, PNP came from Roy Keane stereotyping black players in the Prem. Yeah, to be honest, PNP is a Twitter thing at this point. It's definitely not a real footballing term, but you know me, man. I like my Twitter terms for sure. Is it fair to say the biggest upset that can happen is Australia winning against Argentina in the round of 16? In the round of 16, I would agree with that. Aravinth, excuse me if I'm mispronouncing that. But yeah, I would say Argentina losing to Australia would be the biggest shock, not just of the round of 16, but of the tournament so far. Saw someone say Lautaro and Julian Alvarez up top with Di Maria as a substitute. I wouldn't do so. I think this, because here's the thing, right? Messi already off the ball, you're basically defending with 10 players, 9 if you don't even want to count the goalkeeper. So I don't think you can have 2 guys up front unless Alvarez or Lautaro Martinez are doing exceptional work defensively to compensate for Messi. I think Messi, with his genius, you excuse the fact that he's non-existent off the ball. You cannot have 3 players who are basically just sitting up front by themselves. Di Maria is a tireless worker. So unless Lautaro and potentially Julian Alvarez are to do the dirty work coming back, I don't think you can afford to do so. Would you rather your team to have 9, 10 wingers and a 3 out of 10 striker? Oh, would you rather your team to have a 9 out of 10 winger and a 3 out of 10 striker, or the other way around? That's a tough one. If you give me exact names for each of those players, I could probably answer that better for you, Kiefer. I'm a Salah fanboy. Can't stand Neymar. He's a solid player, but overrated. Hasn't delivered for his talents. I disagree, but you guys know where I stand on that. Do you think Croatia have the legs to go much further? We will talk about that risk of underexposure as this prediction show kind of goes back. I'm just waiting for Nubaid right now. Text him back real quick. The USA will have too much for the Netherlands, I think. Netherlands might win because they are a more clinical team, but the US will control the game. I don't know about controlling the game. Against the Louis van Gaal team, Ryan Parker, it's very difficult to outpossess them. Let's be real. I think the one team that you can probably count that will dominate Netherlands in possession is probably Spain. I don't like the US, if anything, I think they will be the team that's hitting them on the break, trying to get in behind. But I think from a possession point of view, they will control the game almost undoubtedly. Frankie de Jong in a Netherlands shirt is one of the best midfielders in the world for me. Lias, 6 p.m. tomorrow. Messi, you must. Messi must. And here's another thing too, right? Even as a Messi fan, Messi has never scored a knockout goal at a World Cup. That has to end against Australia. If he doesn't, bro, major question marks, 100%. Which Asian team can go furthest in the tournament? Japan. Yeah, I would definitely say Japan, bro. Because who is it really between now? Japan, South Korea, and Australia. If you want to consider them an Asian team, I think it's definitely Japan. Lias, give praise to my Cameroon. Look, man, it broke my heart seeing Cameroon do well today. It broke my heart, but I have to give them credit where it's due. They played exceptionally today. Big ups to being the first African team to beat Brazil at a World Cup. But 1 second. I think I lost my mic real quick. Give me 1 second. We're back. Thoughts on Xhaka? I think Xhaka, for me, Hashi, I kind of compare him to Pogba, in my opinion. Not to say that they're similar players, but their situation in that, bar this season at Arsenal, Xhaka has always been a player that really thrives for his international team, where he's profiled correctly and played in the correct position and given the correct role. He looks like one of the best midfielders in the world. Xhaka has been exceptional at this tournament, like he almost always is for Switzerland. It's just nice to see now that at Arsenal, they've also identified his role correctly. He's not a holding midfielder. He's a guy that you have to give license to really dominate that left hand, not flank, but those left-sided pockets in midfield and really give him the license to do what he wants. Xhaka, he's exceptional. I really think he's a very underrated player. The major question marks because of knockout goals. Yeah, that's crazy. Big rivalry between the Dutch and Argentina. Yeah, everyone remembers that Dennis Bergkamp goal in '98. The iconic commentary between that. Where is this guy, man? He left me to drown. Argentinian steakhouses all over Amsterdam. Anyways, we'll continue this show, man. I almost said Argentina for speed. I think Argentina will beat Australia quite convincingly too, and we'll see how that goes from there. The next game that's being played in that side of the bracket, I believe, is Japan versus Croatia. And this is one that I don't think any of us saw coming, right? I think A, everyone thought Germany would be the other team coming out of that Spain group. And B, Belgium would be the team coming out of that Belgium, Croatia, Canada, Morocco group. So Japan and Morocco is not, or Japan versus Croatia is not a game that anyone really saw coming before this. I'm sure it's not going to be the most blockbuster game that everyone's looking forward to. But I think in terms of quality of football, we're in for a really good game because Croatia, I keep talking about this midfield trio, right? Of Brozovic, Modric, and Kovacic. I think bar Spain, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm missing anyone, that's probably the best midfield at this tournament, guys. Modric, Kovacic, Brozovic. Who can really chat to that? It's hard to say. Outside of them, I would say Spain. But in Japan as well, you have an exceptionally talented team. Like, these guys are so technically secure. They're tenacious. They have dogs all over the pitch, the likes of Minamino. Oh, we got Nubaid back. Welcome back. For someone who's always talking about my internet connection or I have technical difficulties,
Hey, I'm not in my yard. That's why the background looks like this.
I'm weak. Basically, I'm talking about Japan versus Croatia at the moment, Nubaid. I'm kind of talking about this game isn't really built as a blockbuster one. It's not one that a lot of people saw coming, but it's one that I think in terms of quality of football could really be one of the standouts of the round of 16. Because in Croatia, like I just got finished telling them, this Croatian midfield for me is, if not the best, a top 3 midfield at this tournament. When you look at Brozovic, Kovacic, and Modric, the technical security that those 3 possess, you'll be very hard-pressed outside of Busquets, Gavi, and Pedri to find one as accomplished at that. But at the same time, Japan have proven that they are a group of very technically secure, tenacious, and hungry midfielders, attackers in general, I think this is going to be a really good game. Not one that people may like jump on their seats the minute one to watch, but I think if you give this game a chance, it'll be a good one for sure.
I think also Japan have been, technically speaking, quite good in the
Yeah.
simplest term. I think a lot of people are talking about Japan as like this counter team, this team that played just in transition. If you watch the Germany game closely, they actually kept the ball really well. Wataru Endo in midfield is an absolute warrior, and I think he'll be perfectly fine mixing it with the Croatia midfield three. My thing with Japan is they've played Spain where they've had to suffocate without the ball, and they've suffocated completely fine. They've played Germany where Germany naturally leave holes everywhere and make mistakes left, right, and centre. Croatia have got defensive mistakes in them. It's just a case of, and Croatia are another team, actually, to be fair, in the final third, they don't actually have a forward who's good at scoring goals.
Kramaric hype.
Yeah, man. Like, also, he's used up his goals in this tournament now. He ain't going to score again. I mean, I say that now. Watch him go score 4.
Put this up.
It's one of those things where I look at Japan and I think, you know what? If Japan had a draw that they'd like, this is not the worst one because they play like a mid-tier team that like to have the ball. That kind of suits them a little bit. I think if they take on like a Portugal who not only can keep the ball, but they also have so many goal scorers, they're quite hard to stop. Against Croatia, you kind of go, we've got a decent chance in this game, you know. We let them have the ball, hit them on the counter, contain and keep the ball whenever we have it because Croatia don't have much pace. As soon as you give the ball away, Croatia don't get the ball off you and play between the lines. They get the ball and they sort of they have to play another 10 passes before they actually reach the goal. I think it actually suits Japan really nicely.
I think you're right. And you look at two really possession-based teams. Obviously, Germany aren't like tiki-taka here, but like they are a team that like to keep the ball. Japan showed in both of those games that they're perfectly happy to kind of sit deep a bit, absorb a bit of pressure, and then hit you on the break with these mean counterattacks, man. And Croatia are not Germany or Spain, in my opinion. They are there to be had. And risk of underexposure talks about, or I guess he was basically questioning, do they have the legs to go much further in this tournament? I think that's a very, very valid question. This is not one of the youngest teams at this tournament, right? I kept saying Kevin De Bruyne's comments upset me so much. You're like, they for me were so unacceptable because you look at Croatia and they didn't have that. They had the same kind of problem in that they're an aging team as well, but they've shown that they can still go deep in the tournaments. But eventually I expect it to hurt Croatia as well. And Japan do have the youth, they do have the speed, they do have the tenacity to hurt a team like Croatia. So basically, to sum it up, who do you think is going to win this game?
I'm going to back Japan. I think they've got more goals in them. They've got more trump cards. I don't think Croatia are going to enjoy this game at all. I wholeheartedly back Japan. I also want it, you know, like I want them to win it. I think I'm kind of done with Croatia. I think they're at the end of the cycle. This team, I feel like we've been watching. If you put this Croatia team against Switzerland now, I wouldn't be able to tell you what year it was.
This is a Euro 2016 tie right here, bro.
Yeah, big time.
No, 100%. I think, to be honest, I would still favor Croatia. I just think that Japan have done exceptionally well to get here, but I think the experience of Croatia will hurt them down the line in terms of how much they're aging, but I think it'll be enough to get them past Japan. A quick question here from Yaz DLX. I'll pass this on to you at Nubet as well. What's your thoughts on people saying these underdog wins have made the round of 16 fixtures one-sided? I'd argue it sets up insane semifinals.
I think if you've watched this tournament closely enough, there's no such thing as one-sided. I think like if you just watch knockout football, there's no such thing as one-sided. The opposition team always has a chance. I think on the international stage, it's even more apparent because you have teams like Japan and South Korea, and every team that's beaten a bigger side, the upset feels so big for these smaller nations that it's not just like a victory for the 11 players. It's like a victory for the country. It's like a victory for football. It's like a victory for what they've been working for so many years. Like Saudi Arabia when they beat Argentina, that wasn't a victory for Saudi Arabia. That was a victory for like the next 100 years of Saudi Arabian football. So I don't think these ties are one-sided. And also, when has the World Cup ever delivered you exactly the semi-final you think that's going to happen?
Never.
So yeah, it never works out. I don't know how you feel about it, but I think this is just as good as the group stage games, probably better.
I'll tell you this, right? The way I described it yesterday is that, respectfully, I'm not someone who's ever going to watch a Japan Asian Cup game against Oman or an Iran versus, I don't know who's playing in that China and in a qualifying game for the Asian qualifiers. I'm not that kind of guy. So the World Cup is that opportunity for people who don't tune into these games to really watch these teams. And when they turn up the way they have and shock the big teams and show you players that you've never seen before, a way of playing you've never seen before, that's for me what makes the World Cup so special. That's what makes the 4-year wait so special. If not, why don't we just make a Super League for the World Cup? Only the best 10 ranked teams at the tournament get to play in it, and every game is a blockbuster game. No, what makes the World Cup so special is these underdog stories, is these shocks. So I'm very happy to see teams like Japan go far, but I do believe, and here's another one too, right? Gvardiol, I think, is emerging as well as another player that if you haven't put this guy on your wish list for your club, add him very soon. This is for me £100 million center back. It looks like he's off to Chelsea, which if that's the case, I've been critical of how many center backs they buy. I wouldn't be critical of this one.
Yeah,
I
this
think
is a good
he's
one.
that elite of a center back. But going on to the next game, Brazil versus South Korea. And again, I just talked about underdogs and you can't write anyone off. I'm gonna basically change my mind here. I have one question for Brazil versus South Korea. Do you risk Neymar for this game?
Considering the way this World Cup's been and nothing's guaranteed, you keep him on the bench for sure. It depends how fit he is, though. Like, is Neymar? I think he returned to training today or yesterday. I literally just saw it in the news. I don't feel you can throw him in. I don't think you can just throw him in there and go and mix it against South Korea. Because South Korea are going to be well up for this game. One thing South Korea have shown that not many of the other teams, the other nations have shown, is their ability to get the ball in wide areas and put in crosses on a sixpence.
Bro, they're left back, right? They're left back. Yeah. I'm upset that he's 30 years old because he's nuts, man. The outswingers this guy's putting in are exceptional. Exceptional.
I went on SofaScore to type this guy's name in thinking he probably plays for like RB Salzburg. And I was like, he's 20. Who's signing him? I was like, wait, who is this guy? I was like, he's been around the block for a minute.
Heartbreaking. Because I was looking for the scouting report for that guy because I was saying, hey, man, Luke Shaw might have some competition coming soon at Old Trafford, bro. That guy's a baller. But no, I agree. Their deliveries from wide areas. And we are still waiting for Heung-min Son to officially arrive at this tournament. I know he had an assist today. I think he played a little better based on what people were telling me. But Heung-min Son is the only athlete I've ever seen, bar Bakayoko, put on a mask and not elevate his levels. I am waiting, Heung-min Son. I need a performance against Brazil, bro. But outside of that, I think this is a tournament for me that I think Brazil will go through pretty comfortably. We go to the other side of the bracket now. I'm trying to visualize how it looks in my head. I believe it's England versus Senegal. Yeah, England versus Senegal. I mean, you tell me about England, right? This is your home country, bro. I'm new here, so I'm new to the block.
I'm not like entirely convinced on England. I know a lot of it, like English fans. I don't know if it's like this in every other country, and people here can tell us. Please do tell us because I always want to know. But England fans are like the weather, inconsistent, constantly. England beat Iran 6-2. England are the best team in the world. England don't beat USA. England aren't a good team anymore. England beat Wales. England are the best team in the world. England haven't played a good team yet. And I just saw the question there from AB, will England play a back five or not? They won't, but they should in the later stages because there is absolutely no way England's back four does not get cooked by a proper team. If you think about every team England played.
I said Kylian, Dembele.
Yeah. You have to stop these guys. Yeah, exactly, right? Like England have played Iran and conceded 2 goals to Mehdi Taremi and conceded a very big chance to Osman. That's 6-3 in my eyes. That's how I left that game. You play USA, and the only reason you get away with that game is because USA don't have a striker. Otherwise, USA win that game. And then you play Wales, who are, in my opinion, the second or third worst team in this tournament, along with Qatar. And the other one I'm thinking of is probably, well, I would have said Tunisia at the start of the tournament, but not anymore.
Don't say Canada, man. Chill on us,
bro. I actually really enjoyed watching Canada. But yeah, I sort of go, England have probably played 2 of the 5 or 6 worst team in the tournament so far. And the only sort of mid-tier average team they played, they got cooked by. So they now take on Senegal, who are also in that bracket of like average side. The one thing for me with Senegal is they've got the same issue USA have. They'll get in the box and they do not know how to score goals. Yeah. So, and also the other thing is Senegal have conceded a goal in every single game, at least one. And they conceded a goal to Qatar. And Lord knows how that happened because Qatar are the worst team I've seen in the World Cup. So looking from the inside, if you like, from England, I think, probably win this on the basis that Senegal don't have as much individual quality, but that's the end of this tournament. After that, for England fans that are ready to throw beers, throw them this weekend because there ain't going to be no more beer throwing going on.
So what are you saying? If we're looking forward just briefly, you don't give them a hope's chance against France?
No, not a chance in this world. When you watch the way England play and you watch them closely, the only reason England can survive in a back five is if they play really pragmatic football. If they don't play pragmatic football, they will get cooked by any team that wants to play open, expansive football, and that is France. So
Nah, you're right, man. And I look at the way Mbappe and Dembele have been playing this tournament, bro. That's the scariest wing duo on the planet at the moment. And Griezmann is back and forth. Nah, France will be tough. And look, man, I've been saying this. I mean, you agree with me. I don't even got to say it to you. The Bellingham Rice partnership for me, as individuals, they are great midfielders. Together, it's two box to box midfielders trying to form a pivot. Where have we seen that before of England? But regardless, I still think I agree with you. England will beat Senegal. Sadio Mane for me is such a big loss for them, even though I think that he has fallen off a cliff athletically, physically from a few years ago. What he represents and what he brings to that Senegal team, not just as a football player, but I think he's the heart and soul of that team. To be missing him the way they are, I actually think they could have really done something in this tournament with him. Without him, I think England have too much. And speaking of France, that's the other basically tie in that quarterfinal round of 16 bracket. France plays Poland. And if we want to talk about Australia being probably a team that Argentina wanted to play, Poland was the team probably France wanted to play. They hung on. How they managed to qualify at the expense of Mexico. I think this was a group basically who's the least worst out of the three between them, Mexico, and Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia, I think, finished bottom of the group, but poor them, man, because they probably played better throughout this group than Poland and Mexico did. What a shame. Poland, man, Szczesny has saved them. Let's keep it a buck. Do they have even 0.01% chance against France?
The thing is, if it was Saudi against France, genuinely, I'd give Saudi more of a chance because they're aggressive. They put pressure on the opposition. France, if you give France time on the ball, it's game over. It is actually, you've got France have fullbacks that can kill you. There's not many countries in the world that have that. Then you have Griezmann who sits in the pocket, and then you have Kylian Mbappe, obviously against Matty Cash, as Levi just said there. And then you've got a Giroud in the middle against Kamil Glick. This brother shouldn't even be playing anymore. I honestly, France need to have a horrific day, and even then, I still think Poland wouldn't beat them. Poland, actually, you know what I was saying about the worst teams in the tournament. They're in the bottom five. They have been awful this tournament.
I think France can play this game 100 times, and 99 times of them they come out 3-0 winners, bro. I think now they'll need a miracle. But this is what I will say about France, right? The question marks, and I think this is a good Callum here basically says it. France also gave up 2 clear goal scoring opportunities to Australia, 3 to Denmark, and against Tunisia. I look at Varane, for example, who I don't know whether he's coming back from injury or people in general think that he's on the decline anyways. He hasn't been convincing for me whatsoever this tournament. And France in general, for me, defensively, leave a lot to be questioned. Theo Hernandez arguably could be the best attacking left back on the planet, but defensively, he's question marks over him. Pavard on the other end. I think any winger worth half their raise. I'm not saying Poland have that player, but looking forward to England, you can get at Pavard. And Varane, and whether it's Konate next to him or Upamecano, I think Konate is the better of the two, but it does seem like he prefers Upamecano next to Varane. That's not a center back partnership that for me screams convincing. Not whatsoever when you compare it to Umtiti a few years ago. So that's not to say that France now are all of a sudden this meaty team that England can go just destroy, but the question marks you have for England, I kind of have some of them for France. However, what England doesn't have is Kylian Mbappe and Dembele on either side. And they have been absolutely devastating this tournament, haven't they?
Yeah, I think also, very quickly on the point of Pavard, in that England game, I start Rashford. Rashford is the perfect profile against Pavard. Has no idea what's behind him and no idea what's in front of him. He's not a defender. And that's all. Like, I know people talk about Trent as a midfielder. I don't think Trent's a midfielder. Pavard is a midfielder. He doesn't have any sort of defensive acumen whatsoever. In terms of like France going forward, I think you hit the nail on the head, man. Like this is a side that are playing without Pogba, without Kante, and obviously no more Matuidi. This is a new midfield. Well, no Benzema as well. They've got a midfield that at the start of the tournament, I was saying, oh, this midfield could struggle. Adrien Rabiot, brother, what have you been eating? Because he is on one. I just think Poland can try everything in their power to try and win this game. They don't have a chance.
I'm with you. I think France beat them quite convincingly. We'll basically speed through the rest of these. I think there's 2 more games left to talk about. The other one, again, trying to visualize this, I believe is Spain versus Morocco. Another one that everyone probably expected Spain to be on the other side of the bracket. Morocco, I was one of a few. I don't know if you had them with me
I have
in
them
the debate getting out of the group. Yeah, we were on that bandwagon. Morocco, so impressive so far this tournament. The first African team in God knows how many years to win their group. I think the stat today was that no African team has ever had as many points in a group stage as Morocco did this World Cup. So big up to them. They've made the continent proud exceptionally. And against Spain, I think that's not the worst draw in the world for them, is it?
In a way, it's technically speaking a good one, because I think if Morocco get tied with like a Switzerland, they actually have to take the game to them. I think Morocco really suit sitting in, but not too deep, and allowing their wing backs to get man for man against the opposition fullbacks, and then tucking Sofiane Amrabat in as this sort of like this monster third centre back at times. And I think the problem for Spain will be they will create plenty of half chances. And Morocco, this is such a weird thing, but Morocco are one of the best teams at getting the body in the way. And when I watched their game against, can't remember which game it was, but it was a game in AFCON where they are made to half suffer. You know, like teams make you suffer and they have 26 shots on goal and the keeper makes it great. Morocco are the sort of team that's like 30 block shots, 2 shots on goal. They love the suffer part of the game.
That's North African heritage. I'll tell you that. Yeah. All the North African teams, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, Egypt, they all play like the Uruguay of North Africa, bro. Yeah. They all love to just absorb pressure and just suffer for 90 minutes, bro. It's Atletico Madrid, bro.
Yeah. But then the benefit that Morocco have is they've got plenty of flair going forward. I do worry about the main man in the middle. I don't think he's on the series, not a goal scorer. But he's essentially like he's a battering ram. So you can potentially pick things off him. I think Ziyech really needed that goal in the last game. My only thing with Spain is, and my thing with Spain all the time is, in possession, they are completely fine. Out of possession, when a team's got bodies running into the box, that's when I think they start to struggle. And that's where, whether it's Pau Torres, whether it's Emerick Laporte, who I'm a massive fan of, physically, they do have problems in that position. And if you can start tossing the ball up to El Nassiri and picking up the second balls with your Ziyech's and whoever else you want charging into the box, and you can get the ball out to Hakimi and get him putting balls into the dangerous areas, that's where Spain could be under pressure. But this one I can't choose, you know. I know you're going to ask me to pick one, but I honestly cannot choose. I don't know how you feel. Like you've got more of a North African heritage than I do. So
to be honest, like I look at Morocco and Ziyech for me is someone that it's very nice to see basically the resurgence he's had this tournament, because I haven't seen him play this well since his Ajax days. Really, at Chelsea's had such a hard time, and I think international football really suits him with the amount of time and space he's kind of able to find in those pockets. That's really where you see Ziyech at his best. And you look at Buffal on the other end, the fullbacks that they have, like how many countries can boast Mazraoui and Hakimi on either end? That's top quality at both fullback position. But I think my main concern going to this tournament, although I had them coming out of the group, is how far they could go with an El Nassiri up front. Look, I think this is where their journey ends. And even though I'm a Laporte fan, but my thing with Laporte is he always has a bozo moment in big games. Like the amount of times that this guy, for me, crumbles for City, as great as I think he is, I think he's City's second best center back. But he has those moments, those lapses of concentration in him. But I don't think we see it against Morocco. I think Spain have a bit too much quality for them. And Enrique, I'm such a big fan of. I know the last 2 games, I don't think he got it especially right, especially against Germany. Like you'll say Japan, but Germany, I think he completely let his foot off the pedal those last 15 minutes. But I think they'll have enough to beat Morocco. The last game, of course, is Portugal versus Switzerland. Portugal are a weird one for me, right? Because after 2 games, I was actually saying they might be the team. I haven't really been massively convinced by any team this World Cup, as in no one has really staked their credentials as the top dog at this World Cup. But Portugal have been very quietly comfortable in those first 2 games. Obviously, the third game, they play their reserves, so you can't take too much away from that, them losing to South Korea. But Bruno Fernandes has potentially been the player of the tournament. He's been up there. He's been terrific. The question is, Ronaldo, man. This tournament has not been good. And I don't mean to be the guy who continuously just bangs the Ronaldo drum, but can you win the tournament going forward with this guy up front? Because I think these 3 games, that interview for me is aging like milk, because anyone who's questioning Ten Hag or United, or are they holding him back, you're going to a Portugal team littered with talent, arguably one of the best talented teams in the tournament, and a manager that he's basically come out and said is a manager I have huge respect for, and I think he's a top manager. And the form hasn't been better whatsoever. In fact, I think it's more of the same.
Yeah, I mean, he missed a lot of chances in this game, in the third game, and I think my thing with this Ronaldo situation is if you can't live with him, you can't live without him, and that's kind of the problem. Like a lot of these players look up to him, the manager relies on him. I think you bench Ronaldo, you end up in the same position that Ten Hag's in, where he's going to moan, he's going to give you a headache. You don't bench Ronaldo, and he gives you this headache where you're like, well, if it's 0-0 against Switzerland and it's 85 minutes, you're not going to sub Ronaldo. It's not even in those moments is where you actually go. That's probably when you want Ronaldo. 85th minute, other team's tired, but you can't sub him on because of the situation you're in. That's my like. I also agree that there is a problem there because I think if you take Ronaldo out, you find a way to start Rafael Leao, and I think he has to start. But the problem is like with Ronaldo playing, Rafael Leao can't play. Obviously, they don't play in the same position, but I think if you get rid of Ronaldo, you can play one up front, and then you can play Rafael Leao off the left side, and then you've got your powerful, pacey winger who's going to give every team a problem. My thing with this Portugal team is everything they do is in front of you. So like if you can sit in, no one's actually running beyond. They all kind of play to your feet. And that's not that difficult to play against, which is why I think Bruno has really benefited because we know what Bruno loves to do. He loves teams that sit in and then he can play one killer pass and it pulls off. He's actually been very good in this tournament, to be fair. Although what I will say is against Ghana, the 2 assists he got both were in transition. Ghana were like all over the place. So
and look, the first goal he scored against Uruguay, it's not a classic, right? We barely even knew if it was his goal to begin with.
Yeah. So, but I think his general overall play has been better. My thing with this Portugal team is you probably have one of the best players in the world in Bernardo Silva, and he doesn't even exist in your team because he's essentially like you could put me in there and you wouldn't see the difference because it's just like. One, I'm a great footballer, but two, I just think that they've got assets in their team that they don't use because they don't really know how to.
Fair enough. No, honestly, I think they will beat Switzerland. Although Switzerland
will be tricky.
Switzerland are look, they're a banana peel, man. Like they've slipped up some big teams in the past defensively. You talk about a team that Portugal aren't great basically at really stretching defenses. The one thing with Portugal though, the way Dalot has been playing in recent games for Portugal, I know he didn't start the first 2 games, but he got the opportunity today, put in a delicious cross for the first goal. I'll be interested in seeing how long Fernando Santos persists with Cancelo. I'm a massive Cancelo fan. Everyone knows the TikTok that I went viral from what's not the leg, but he's been very, very shaky this tournament. In fact, even for City in the last few weeks, he hasn't been in the greatest of form. Dalot has been really good. Mendes on the other end is out for the tournament. So we'll see if he's able to come in because I think fullback play, if Portugal are really to do something at this tournament, will be massive for them. That threat from out wide, because like you say, you look at Portugal's team, there isn't real natural width coming from anywhere. They aren't playing a Leao. They aren't playing a real right winger. So those fullbacks really have to be on it. So if Dalot is to really get into this team and continue the output he's showing for them, that could be a trump card for them. But I think Portugal, they just have too many weapons at the end of the day, bro. Like you can call on Leao to come off the bench, Otavio, Mateus Nunes. Like they have so many weapons. João Felix, I don't even think he's really got going this tournament. He had moments in that first game against Ghana, but I think you're still to see more from him. If they get clicking, Portugal can really do something for me.
Also, on the point of the fullback situation, you've got to play Cancelo at left back.
Yes, definitely.
It's just even if you didn't have Dalot, you have to play Cancelo at left back. Like he is your best option there. He plays there for arguably the best team in the country, in the world. You have to play him there, and if you don't, then you're an idiot. Someone said Portugal have all the fundamentals to win this World Cup. CR7 is their crutch. Interesting.
Yeah, and we got a super chat here from Luis Garcia. Our fullbacks will kill left back Cancelo and Dalot right back. I don't know if you're Portuguese or Swiss, but I like the fullback pairing.
His name's Luis Garcia. So
that doesn't sound Swiss. I'm gonna guess that you meant like those are killer fullbacks. I agree. Dalot right back, Cancelo left back could really do the trick. So yeah, I got Portugal going through, and that's really our round of 16 predictions. Just to quickly summarize it, guys. We got Netherlands beating USA, Argentina beating Australia, Brazil beating Korea, Japan. Nubeda's Japan beating Croatia. I have Croatia slightly edging it. England to beat Senegal. France to demolish Poland. Morocco to, I have them losing to Spain. Nubeda is sitting on the fence. His specialty over there. And of course, Portugal beating Switzerland, just edging it past. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, guys. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, one little caveat for those that are at home. probably won't happen like this because this is too predictable. What we just
that's
predicted is
yeah.
everything by the script. It's not going to be like this.
Korea versus Brazil. Watch out. Son is going to get unlocked this game. But yo, guys, thank you guys for tuning in. Of course, this group stage has been crazy. We're not going to stop either. We got round of 16 action every single day on FTBL. Nubaid, before we leave, is there anything you want to say to the audience? Want to plug some stuff?
No, I just want to say thank you for listening. Of course, if you don't listen to the No Ratings Pod, I think there's over 200 people listening to this, watching this right now. There's a No Ratings Pod episode going live at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. So Liaz is on it, Amir and Faisal, if you know them three guys, and obviously myself. So tune into that. And thank you for having me on, bro. And shout out for all the work you're doing, bro.
Absolutely. We have to change the roles every once in a while, man. Keep them on their toes. But guys, I hope you guys have enjoyed the show. Make sure you like, make sure you share, make sure you subscribe, turn the notifications on so you don't miss any of these lives. Comment in the comment section below, not in the chat, in the comment section below. Algorithm. But without further ado, guys, this has been myself, Lias. It's been Rambo. We'll see you when we see you. Peace.